All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to have a short presentation here as this kicks off the sort of official part of the council meeting here just after 6:30. My name is Kevin Murdoch. I'm the mayor, and I'm going to start just by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish people, specifically Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Esquimalt and Songhees First Nations, and that their connections to these lands continue to this day. Also that this portion will be live streamed onto the internet and will be archived for future purposes. Really, this is just a chance for a presentation to go over the where we're at in the financial planning process. We'll have the opportunity for a few questions here and then break out afterwards. You're welcome to speak to any of the members of council or to the staff, and we'll have information available at that time. With that, I believe I'm handing it over to someone. Mr. Jones?
Thank you, Your Worship. I heard that not so subtle hint, so I will try to keep this brief. So one of the things staff has heard from council is that they are very keen on having enhanced engagement and more early opportunities for public input into the budget process. So this is one of those opportunities, and this is something new for Oak Bay. So it's a meeting in advance of what we used to call our estimates meetings. And the one thing I can assure you of is that we don't have it perfect. And one thing we would really appreciate feedback on is how we can make things better in the future. So as members of council or members of the public, if you have some of that feedback, we would really like to hear that from you. So I'm off to a good start because I can't figure out how to work my... Oh,
And that concludes our... Oh, no.
So, yeah, just the agenda. I won't go over this. Financial plan process, and at the end, provide members of the public in a couple of different ways to provide public input. If people want to come up and talk at the mic, they're welcome to do that. We've also got feedback forms that people can provide today or take away with them. So really, the purpose is to review our budget process, introduce the draft financial plan, and discuss how these documents link to strategic planning. And I'm here today because our new CAO, Lou Varela, is not here. She is going to be starting on April 8th. And one of the priorities I know for her and for council is to really start drawing that closer link between strategy and the budget. So we're making progress, but we've got still lots to do. So just a couple things. I'm not going to go through really any of these. This is just a little bit about Oak Bay, but what for me this is a reminder to myself to talk a little bit about something that's unique for us. We are essentially a built-out community, and a lot of the communities around you are not. So you will find different tax rates amongst various places, and part of that reason that Oak Bay is going to be higher most of the time, I'll tell you that for a fact, and until those other municipalities actually have built out as well. So we don't have, I'm going to say the benefit, because some people think it's a detriment, but we don't have the benefit of new assessment growth. So if you look at some communities, they may actually have, because just of the increased growth in the assessment base, that doesn't mean growth in assessment, but new growth, you'll find some of them have up to 2, sometimes 3% additional revenue brought in each year just because of that growth. We don't have that here. So that's something we really have to recognize and understand, that we're a little bit different, and we need to be looking at different ways of doing things. We need to make sure we can operate as efficiently as possible, because we are not going to grow. We need to look at other revenue opportunities, but that's just an important thing, I believe, for people in the community to understand. So just a little bit about the process. As I mentioned, we've undergone more significant processes this year around strategic planning and budgeting, and this is just one more step, and we still have more steps. So April 3rd, which is going to focus primarily on parks, recreation, and culture, and then April 10th and 17th will be the other departments. One of the things we did earlier this year was produce a draft financial plan, which we've produced a couple of weeks earlier than normal. And there's risks with that, of course, because there's going to be changes. But what we hope is that we are going to give the public more opportunity to review that document and those numbers, and give us the feedback that they would like to provide. So just a reminder, a couple of deadlines. We have to adopt the budget by May 15th is the bottom line. One of the things I think that staff and council have looked at is there a way that we can make this process be complete sooner? There are advantages to that. If we have an ability to adopt, especially our capital plans, we can get out to the market sooner and perhaps beat some of the our competitor municipalities to market on things like paving, gravel, cement, those kinds of things. So that is something that we will be looking at as staff, and certainly be coming forward to council with. I won't go through all of this, just saying here really are the roles. I mean, it's the electorate, they elect council, council decides on the policy, they direct the CAO, who in turn direct the staff to carry out that policy. Just a couple of things. It's always good to, if you can, to have your plans supported by I guess information. So what council has said is that the OCP is an incredibly important document that we see as probably the lead document in forwarding our goals. So all what you see here is just the top 5 items that were received the highest response rates. Not necessarily super important, but I think you'll see when you look at them that those are all things that are on council's work plan to look at. 2016, we did a citizen satisfaction survey. The one thing I would point out there, I'm not sure, when I spoke with the people at the organization that conducted this, NRG, they had not seen a response rate as high for people that like the community that they lived in. So that was a really good thing. One of the important pieces from a budget perspective, 61% of respondents said they would prefer that the district set aside funds each year to fund larger projects. Just something to consider. And 67% of all respondents selected an option that would increase taxes to maintain or expand services, sometimes paired with the options to contribute to reserves. Oops, sorry. We this year, it was the second year we used an online tool called the Budget Simulator, and last year we had 47 responses. This year we had 97 responses. And if you look at all those lines, really, all that is saying is that people think we should be spending more money on infrastructure, is the bottom line. So achievements to date. So far, we've had definitely a more robust public strategic planning process. We developed 5 strategic priorities. We agreed in principle to adopt the Oak Bay OCP vision as a statement for the philosophy piece for the plan. So that's, as I mentioned before, that varies from community to community, but I think what we heard from council is we've got this OCP, and that should be our guiding document, and from that should evolve our strategies. We've built a common knowledge base about tools for housing, achieved council consensus in principle to include an annual 2% increase for infrastructure renewal and an annual 1% increase specifically for roads in the upcoming budget process. We've utilized the initiative template sheets to introduce and discuss proposed new initiatives for council. So hopefully the council and the public have found that helpful. We've provided, here's what we want to do, but the rationale for doing so, cost, etc. Council commitments. I'm not going to read all these out. I think from staff's perspective, one is that council is very, very interested in trying to deal with this gap that we have between our infrastructure and what we actually have to spend on fixing and maintaining that infrastructure. And the other is ensuring that we have very transparent processes where we can engage the community so they understand and we can educate and we can learn from them about these processes. And I think that's one thing that we've tried to do this past year, but we need to do more to make sure that people understand this is an old community, and a lot of our pipes underground, a lot of other infrastructure is aged, and it's time that we need to take care of it. This is just, I'm not going to talk much about this again. This is just what I mentioned before. The official community plan is the document that guides everything else that we are doing. Now, some of these things we haven't necessarily completed. As example, organizational action plans. One thing that the staff are very keen on doing is taking council's goals and developing those even further into really solid departmental work plans, and we're working on that, and that's a work in progress. Council's strategic priorities. This is something that you guys have agreed to so far in a draft way. Ensure access to diverse housing options, achieve sustainable service delivery, provide service excellence, enhance and promote quality of life and sense of place, and demonstrate leadership in fostering community health and resilience. So some of the future challenges and gaps. So we know that we do not have funding in place to take care of our infrastructure. So that is something that council is going to have to struggle with, and it's not something easy, but is something that's critical. Our corporate infrastructure, I think if you look around at some of our facilities, they're definitely aging, but we also need to put in place the systems and to make sure we've got the right people and who are trained to do the work that needs to get done. We need to do more in the way of performance indicators. We want to, as staff, to be able to demonstrate to the community that we are being successful in accomplishing things that are important to the community. And we do have some of those indicators in place, but not nearly really what we should have. And that goes But that's going to take some time, and it's going to take some resources. So as an example, at the end of certain projects that we complete, you really should have a project completion report that says, here's how it went, here are the problems, here's what went well, here's our learnings. But really, to be honest, right now, we just simply don't have the capacity to do that kind of thing. But that's important work that staff believe needs to happen. This is just a chart of interest that I think most local governments kind of throw up on the board when you start talking about budget. What this says is, of the entire tax bill that you as a person pay, 10.3% of that goes to local government, and 44% goes to federal. You think about that one every time. If you get a check, you see the money come off there, and provincial is 45%. So it's a matter of just keeping in context where your taxes are going. This is just a chart of, actually, this is our capital projects, so this is not operational. Just a sense of in 2018 where we spent our money, and I think, as you can see, it's very largely related to infrastructure, which is the number one priority from a staff perspective, but still more needs to be done in that regard. And where do we get our money? Fees and charges, 37%, taxes, 48%. Other, that's usually grants and reserves a little bit. Again, one of the interesting things about Oak Bay is this is almost entirely a residential-based system. So we know every time we spend an additional dollar, that dollar comes out of the pocket of residential taxpayers, largely. So just, again, something that to be cognizant of. Some of the budget drivers for this year, and I've even thrown away all my notes, so I'll have to catch up to myself. The employee health tax, so that was a bit of a download from the provincial government, and the cost to Oak Bay is going to be $360,000. So it's a pretty significant amount of money. Contractual and inflationary increases, so that would be increases to salaries for firefighters, police, staff. That would be your software licensing. Those things that you're contractually obligated is $640,000. And the final one that council is looking at is the infrastructure and pavement management, which is adding an additional 2% to the infrastructure program and 1% to pavement management. So if you add that up, that comes to about a 7% tax increase just with those items. Oh, and there it is. We're anticipating a growth of 0.7%. I'm not exactly sure where that's coming from. It's a small amount, so. So just a reminder, next steps, April 3rd, next week, we've got the Parks, Recreation and Culture Commission coming to meet jointly with Council to go over that budget. And then on April 10th and the 17th, we will be examining the budgets for the other departments. And again, if people have not picked up one, there is a copy of the draft plan outside, and you can have a look at that and give you a couple of weeks to come up with your questions and ideas. And just again, a reminder, the deadlines. We have to adopt the budget by the 15th of May. So to members of the public especially, thanks for coming out on such a beautiful spring evening, and to the members of the staff and council. And Your Worship, we're happy to try to respond to any questions that you may have, although we anticipate that the majority of questions will be on the next 3 meetings. But if there's some feedback that people have for us now, or questions that we can answer, we'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. And there's not a huge crowd of people here. I will just point out, this is the document, if you haven't grabbed one already, that Mr. Jones referred to as the draft financial plan. It does have a fair bit broken down by department. So if you're looking for what, say, Parks and Rec is doing, the 5-year plan for those projects is laid out in terms of what the structure is going on. So this is the place, if you want to have at a glance, it's a very helpful place to go look at. And we do have a number of our directors here, Mr. Herman, Director of Park, Recreation and Culture, Mr. Captain or Chief Hughes from, how to get used to saying that, Chief Hughes from the Fire Department, David Brozic, who's the Manager of Public Works, here to talk about engineering and public works. Who else is? We have a number of directors here. Who else is? Oh, Bruce Anderson is hiding behind his office there as a director of building and planning as well. So, oh, and Debbie Carter is here as well. A director of finance is here, back temporarily to help answer questions. So, in any case, we're here to answer questions on it, and I do appreciate very much the effort to get these numbers to us today. It's been tough to get all these numbers put together in a timely fashion, sort of 2 weeks before our official schedule actually said they were due. So do appreciate that. And we can talk to specifics, or we can just talk to general questions, but certainly welcome to take anybody who wants to come forward at this time and speak to council as a whole. If not, then we adjourn at this point officially, and then we'll just continue with the public. Okay.
Move adjournment?
Oh, no, before we adjourn, if there's anybody who wishes to come forward.
No, let's just move adjournment. No, just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, this is a chance. If there's a question that people have that might be of interest to the broader public, this is actually a great chance to come forward and just ask that question. Yeah, please come forward. If you don't mind just saying your name and municipality of residence.
Yeah, John Spence, Oak Bay, live on Woodlawn. For engineering and public works, would that be?
You can just direct it through me and I'll pass it on.
Yes, and it's about roads. I know we're increasing the budget for roads. I put in a letter to council in 2014 to address Woodlawn Crescent, the road. You put a new top coat on, but beyond that, there was other issues for safety, and one was to deal with the actual cul-de-sac at the end to put a curbed. I think one of the councillors suggested at the time, Michelle Kirby, she said it probably should be a rain garden. Basically, that is to stop people from parking in that area to make sure that we can get emergency vehicles around as necessary. I contacted council repeatedly over the next 4 years, and finally I came up, got a bit excited, and the municipality said they did not receive my letter. So I brought the letter that I received from the municipality in September, so that was 4 months later, saying that they had received my letter and that they would be dealt with in a priority fashion. So again, almost 4 years later, I came up and we got something done. Unfortunately, halfway through the pavement, I got a call, and could you come out to the laneway in the back of your garage? But because they put tarmac on top of tarmac on top of tarmac, if they continued on, and they were half done, I would no longer be able to open up the doors to my garage because it was so high. So they came up with a cunning plan, was to put a curb out in the middle of the road and then drastically put it down so that I could actually open up my garage. The garage is 1910. So what else can you do? That was done. Now, my old motorcycle, I take it out, it bottoms out. My wife's car doesn't fit in because of the doors. It was probably a carriage house at the time. But my son's car does fit in and it bottoms out. I just bring this up because I see a lot of that. It's not only that. My original letter said, the safety issues, yellow curb one side so that it's only parking on one side to make sure that fire trucks, ambulances would get up. That wasn't addressed, but I did get a call saying, yeah, we're done, you happy? And I was just fed up with it at the time and said, yeah, I'm done, I don't want to talk to you. But that's kind of the stuff I think we see. I saw all Monterey, this is just last year, where they go up with a paving truck. They must have had some leftover pavement and they went and they put paving into the cracks. Well, there's so many cracks, why would you put them in one and not the other? Anyways, I think the other thing as well is when we're doing paving, and are we prioritizing doing the planned maintenance so that if you're doing a road that you're doing, like do you know how old the pipes are underneath it? Is it a opportunity work that you could actually do that? Is there a sense of confidence that that's being is happening? Anyways.
I can try and answer those questions if you want.
It's kind of all over the place, but I know we're up for a big tax increase, and all of these things are an additional, as far as I'm concerned, tax increase. Beyond that, in my old house on McNeil, where I lived for 25 years, I had 3 major floods in less than 10 years, of which all 3 of them I was at sea. I phoned my wife, she's got 2 feet of water in the basement. And after the last one, I think it was a year after the last one, the municipality replaced the drain line going from McNeil to McNeil Avenue to McNeil Bay. And all of a sudden there was no more floods in the basements. And I wasn't the only one, there was dozens. So I paid $14,000 at that time for a 2-pipe drain system that after the fact plumbers said I didn't need. So, but the municipality suggested that I put a 2-pipe drain system in with a check valve so I wouldn't have water coming into my basement anymore. So that's all I got to say.
I should just point out, because I think the point about the paving is probably one that we get a fair bit on, and will be a topic of good debate at the council table. And page 42 is where the engineering and the public work projects are, and there's a couple of aspects of that. One is there's a where is it on here? It's called Pavement Management, second line from the bottom. So you're right. There's an $826,000 budget this year, up from, I think it was $715,000 as a one-off year, but we've typically had about $400,000 to $500,000 in that budget over the last number of years. Our target is $2.8 million. That's the amount of money identified to maintain our roads at the current level. So we are quite short still of that number. Part of that is we are undergoing a more detailed asset management discussion around the pipes. And so the priority of the roads is twofold. One is where can we get the best bang, where we do repairs now that'll last the longest time, i.e. trying to catch them before they completely break down. The ones that are really, really bad are actually, they don't get much worse once they're past a certain point. So we're trying to capture the ones before they get bad, if that makes sense. At the same time,
sorry, you say they don't get much worse?
Don't get much more expensive to fix, right?
But they definitely get much more worse.
Oh, they get worse, but they don't get much more expensive to fix. Whereas if you can catch them before they start to, the base starts to deteriorate, then you can, for a relatively small amount of money, extend the life of those roads. But the other half of that with the asset management is we're looking at replacing a large number of pipes. And so how do we tie the road replacement to those pipe replacement? For a number of reasons. One, we don't want to dig up a fresh road to replace pipes, but also there is an opportunity to get grants for the pipe replacement, and those can include the covering of the cost of the repaving of the roads, where the roads otherwise are entirely covered out of taxes, and that's a very expensive proposition for us. So we're that asset management plan, that really detailed plan, is it's in different stages for different parts, but it's coming along quite well. Staff have a pretty good idea of what to do in the next few years to prioritize, based on their knowledge, and the formal conjoined plan that kind of lays it out in a very clear fashion is probably still a few years away as it's being worked on. But I think that's the one area that we have the largest gap between where we need to be and where we are today in terms of our funding. The other part in there is you'll see an ever increasing, and Mr. Jones touched on that, is just a decision by this council, and again, nothing's decision until it's in the budget and we vote on it, but is to add that 2% per year for the next 5 years. And the idea is that by the end of the next 5 years, there'll be $5.5 million or so in a infrastructure reserve, and that will allow us to go out there and seek some of the larger project grants, because we can get up to 80% of our costs covered by other levels of government, but we need to have if there's a $20 million project, we still need to have that $5 million in cash to go out and seek those grants from the levels of government. So those are sort of the strategies to kind of get to that point. The one that we do, I think, fall short of still is the paving one.
Okay, I think you answered.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else who wishes to come forward and ask some questions? Yeah.
I would.
I see a nodding head.
Yeah,
So
I
just
wanted to
come
make sure that other people had the opportunity rather than jumping in. My name is Mark Pinkowski. I live on Granite Street for the last 20 years, and I was amazed to see from your that I'm the average citizen of Oak Bay. I just turned 49 a couple of weeks ago, and so I've never thought of myself as the average Oak Bay citizen, but here I am. I moved here to do my PhD at UVic 20 years ago, and I'm hoping to never leave. I work in the cannabis industry, and so I just came back from a cannabis conference in Vancouver last night, and I just thought it would be worthwhile to share something. I know that you guys are talking about the budget, and it's much larger issues than what I'm going to say, but I think there's still a kernel here that I have to offer. And I just want to, full disclosure, I work with Indigenous communities, mostly on retail outlets on reserves. So I'm not talking about something like my own work, is informed. What I'm offering here from what I'm informed with is what I want to bring locally. I just want everybody to know that the vultures are circling. Vancouver is very interested. Toronto is very interested in opening up retail stores here in Victoria, and I urge Oak Bay to get out ahead and to look at that July 9th report that was tabled here on recreational cannabis, and to make sure that we have a community plan and the bylaws in place to be able to address what's going to happen with this industry in terms of retail and how it's going to happen, because big players are coming. I know that every day because of the job that I do. We get people from Alberta, from Toronto, and from Vancouver trying to buy the businesses that we're running. And so they're looking to get here. And I really think that Oak Bay should come up with an idea that says, this is how we'd like to do this. And even if we say, okay, we don't want to have cannabis retail, that's a fair decision that communities should be able to make. Nonetheless, I think it would be silly to forego that. My 82-year-old mother, takes CBD for sleep. This is the reality that we're in now. So I think we should get out ahead, get the kind of retail that we want, and really establish a local kind of Oak Bay establishment. And that's so. I just want to bring that forward. If anyone wants to talk more about I'm doing work up in Yukon, throughout British Columbia, and my own work is actually in the downtown east side of Vancouver. And trying to use cannabis as a replacement for opioid stuff. So that's where my own work lies. But I'm involved with local people trying to see if this is an opportunity here. And I think that it would be remiss on us all to not get out ahead of it rather than to react to what's going to happen. And it's coming. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pinkowski.
If you have any, Dr. Pinkowski, in fact.
Dr. Pinkowski.
If you, it's worth to bring it out at some point. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to answer.
You never said you finished your PhD, so I wouldn't.
Oh, no, I definitely did. I taught at UVic for 12 years.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that's good to know I'm average as well. This is good to have that out there. Soon to be above average. Anybody else wish to come forward to speak to us at this time? Okay, and I'm not seeing anybody else, so I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much to staff for putting this together, and we'll have some reading ahead of us. I think one of the really positive aspects of this is it gives us time to read, come up with questions, think a little bit. and hopefully have a bit more of a strategic discussion at the beginning of our budgeting process than we have in past years. I am encouraged by the willingness to make some hard decisions and certainly make decisions with all the information on the table in front of us, which is so all this kind of information all helps. With that, I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Now I will make a motion to adjourn.
Moved and
Second.
seconded. Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Unopposed? Thank you very much. That concludes the official meeting, and staff and council will stick around here until 8 o'clock.
Yes.
And be willing to answer any other questions as you have them. Thank you very much.